I won this small mid-century dresser at an auction for $1. Woohoo! Lucky me! Until I brought it home. It was dirty. I mean, it was really dirty. It must have sat out in someone's garage or barn for years because it needed some major work. But if it had only been that, it wouldn't have been a bad thing. I can handle dirt. It's pretty easy to get rid of dirt. And of course, anything you ever buy at an auction always has a few surprises. The bottom leg in the back had quite a bit of damage to it, so I'll have to figure out what to do with that. Along the back of the dresser, the particle board substrate had got water damage and was swollen in this area. So we'll have to fix that. And of course, various chunks were found missing out of various parts of the dresser. Another nice surprise was a slice of wood missing from one of the drawer handles. And of course, you've got to admire the fabulous paint job. Let me talk about strippers for a few minutes. I tend to use the same stripper over and over again. It's called Circa 1850, and I always have pretty good success with it. I usually put it on, leave it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and everything bubbles nicely. I scrape it off and, move on to the next thing. Well, you can see by the look of my stripping job here, things weren't going so well. I don't know what kind of paint was on here, but my stripper just was not reacting with it very well. So I changed course and I tried a new stripper, Stripwell I think it's called. Tried that out. It didn't work at all. And I've heard that sometimes it doesn't work on certain surfaces, so I wasn't overly surprised. So I put that away, abandoned that, went back to my original stripper, and what I ended up doing is putting, I think, 3 coats in 3 different sessions, 3 coats of the stripper on and scraping it as best I could. Each application softened it a little bit more, so it was a little bit easier to scrape off. So by the time I got into the last one, I got a good chunk of it off. Then I switched to my Baco scraper to get the remainder of it off, and that seemed to do the job. It was definitely a little bit more work than I had anticipated. I literally have, I think, hours of footage of scraping paint on this little small dresser. So I am definitely not going to show you all of it because it would bore you to tears. So what I thought I'd do is I just take a portion of some of the shots and speed it up super fast so that we can both get through it as fast as possible. This is where you look at your piece and you just got to believe in the process because it will look better. Because when you look at it right now, you think, oh my God, what have I done? And some people would just quit at this point. But I've done enough that I know I can get something good out of it, so I'm just going to plug away. I'm taking the back off right now, just pulling out some staples and a few nails because it wasn't in very good shape. So I decided that I'm just going to go ahead and replace it, and I'll do that a little later on in the video. Now here is the little beauty all stripped in all its glory. Believe it or not, there's nice walnut under this mess. And here is one of the first challenges I'm going to have to fix. But first, on to a bit of sanding. Here I got the idea that I would take off the top of the dresser so that it would be easier to scrape where the top of the dresser meets the sides of the dressers, because there was lots of paint jammed in there. Seemed pretty straightforward, but spoiler alert, the back part of the dresser top was glued, and I didn't know this until the very end, and I could not get it off. But the good news was I didn't reattach the top completely. I left the screws out. So by doing that, I was able to lift up the top quite a bit to get underneath to get a better job at sanding. And that helped a lot. After many, many hours of sanding and stripping and picking out paint, this is where the dresser is at right now. This is a reminder of what it started out like. Next one is the shot of it just after stripping, and this is after the sanding is all done. Still a lot of flecks of paint in that I have to pick out, and of course I have to address all the damage. Okay, the problem I've got here, as you can see, is the substrate, which is this part right here, is particle board. And as you can see, right here, water has gotten into it and made it like it's all swollen. And what that's done is it's lifted the veneer on the top. So my idea is I'm going to remove some of this substrate here with my little Dremel saw, and by doing that I should be able to push this down and make it level with the top of the dresser. And then I will fill it with a combination of, I'm thinking, wood glue and sawdust, and clamp it with a board to make it straight, and hopefully that'll work. We'll see. That's my idea anyways. The piece of substrate here, particle board, that is left between the veneer and the hole that I've created, there's still some sponginess in it because there's not a lot of substrate left. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put some super glue into the holes because it's very porous along here, and I'm going to just clamp this little piece right here first. I'm going to clamp it just so it gives it a bit of rigidity. The glue and the clamping should do that. And then after that is dried, then what I'll do is I will fill this whole area with wood glue and sawdust and clamp the whole thing down to bring it closer to, you know, the width of the unswollen particle board. And we'll see what that does. See how that works. So here we go. Have no idea if this is going to work. Here's my sawdust from all the material that I got out of the back here. And what I am going to do is I'm going to put a bunch of glue and sawdust in here. I clamped it really well and left it overnight, and the next morning it was solid. It worked really well. There was still a slight curve to it, but it was way better than before. And when you viewed it from the side, you could barely see the rays in the profile. So I was happy enough with the results. So what I did is I continued by sanding the raised veneer so I could get it ready to glue, so I could glue the veneer back down. This is after the clamps came off. As you can see, it's flattened out quite a bit. The veneer is all down flat now, and all I'm doing is scraping off some of the leftover glue. Still a bit of patching to do with a little bit of wood filler, but you know, way better than it was. The dresser was full of these little dents everywhere, so I took an iron and steamed most of them out. They came out pretty good, most of them. A few of them, you know, weren't perfect, but better than they were. So I just went all over the dresser, and I'm just showing you a few examples of it, but there was many more. Okay, here's the back leg that I have to fix. So what I've done is I've chiseled off all the wood. I've cut the veneer on an angle here. So I'm going to have to fill it in 2 steps. I'm going to have to bring this piece up to this piece here, make that level, and then once this is all level here, then I'll be able to reattach a piece of veneer. And I'll also have to build it up all the way down here because it looks like this piece got cut off. It used to go all the way down here, so it'll be interesting. The next little problem I had to address was the slice out of the, I believe it was the top dresser drawer, was missing a piece of the walnut, because they're solid walnut. But it was long gone, and I really wanted to reuse the original handle, so I found a gentleman on Facebook Marketplace who was selling a bunch of walnut, and I think I paid him 25 bucks, and I got quite a nice stash of walnut, and I was able to use a piece to recreate the missing piece. Luckily, I have a husband who's pretty handy, so we brainstormed on how we were going to do this, and we duct taped the handle to a piece of wood so we could use it in our chop saw to make the angled cut. We just needed to clean it up so that we could attach the new walnut to it. On the right, you can see the handle, and on the left is the newly cut piece of walnut to the same angle as on the handle. That's how we made the first cut on the new walnut. We just wanted it to match the angle. Now that the walnut piece is cut to size, I've made a tape hinge, so that'll just help me glue up the two pieces together. I'll just open it up, pop some glue in there, close it, tape it, clamp it, and wait for it to dry. This is what the piece looks like after the glue has dried. The next step, which I don't have on film, is I just cleaned it up a little bit more with my chop saw just to make it more manageable to use with the belt sander and my chisels. And you can see what it's looking. It's looking a little bit better, the profile now. You can see the repair job done on the fixed handle right here where I'm pointing. The grain structure is just not the same. But, I'm pretty sure I can camouflage it well enough. And it's sturdy. It's rock solid, so I don't have to worry about it breaking again. Sandpaper and a dental pick. I spent hours with it trying to get rid of all the little splotches of paint that had embedded themselves into the grain. And a lot of the indented little indents also had, stain sort of embedded in it. So I used sandpaper for that. It was a tedious process, but had to be done. And I didn't get it all out either. I had to do some filling with grain filling markers after I stained the whole piece. And I decided to stain the piece because there was still quite a bit of markings and unevenness in the wood, and I thought staining it would sort of help with that. It was still too cold in my garage to do any kind of spraying with lacquers and toners, so that wasn't an option. You can see here as I start staining the side of the dresser that there's, especially along the front edge, you could see some white paint marks. They just wouldn't come out, so I opted to just cover them with the stain, and I was going to use my grain filler markers just to camouflage them at the end. Thanks for hanging in there and watching till the end. It was a little longer than usual, but I had just so much footage to go through. I've been trying to keep them around 20 minutes, but I couldn't do it on this one. So let me know what you think about the length of this one and if you'd prefer the shorter ones. Let's take a walk down memory lane and have a bit of a reminder of what I started with. This little dresser that I bought for $1 and that nobody else wanted is finally finished, and it gets to live another life. And that makes me happy. Enjoy the reveal.